So welcome to Node API meeting on September 12th, and I'm going to share my screen, the Node.js team project board. Any items that people would like to bring up before we jump to the lists individually? Cool. Um, let's see if we have any updates with the progress. Um, I think, if I recall correctly, there was a new focus. Well, anyway, I think we are going to jump to it in the new charge list. So let's see if we have any news for the shared API, shared array buffer API. I think I approved this one. It's the CI has been green for the progress. It adds a few a few new node API that exposes the ability to create a shadow buffer and to detect if a API value is a shadow buffer. So it'll be great if we can have another review on this pull request. It should be ready to land after another approval.
Should we update description for PR? Because we don't have shared buffer info anymore. Okay. Right.
Um, well, I think
But
well, I
you're right.
can.
Like, I think it's green. We don't really want to have any code changes.
It's Yeah, it's not. It's usually not necessary, but I can I can update it myself because I don't think it's very. I
Right.
don't think it's going to block the merge, so I can update it. We don't have any external Ariba support, so I think that's the right. That's the two APIs to be added.
Right. Yeah, I'll check the right after the meeting. So I think it's for a long time already cooked. It's should pretty good at this point.
Yeah, thank you very much. Um, any questions for this request? If not, I think yeah, it'll be appreciated if you can take a look at this progress so that we will be able to land it. Thank you very much. And next is the float 16 array. We don't have any updates for this one. Anything else in the in progress list that people would like to talk about?
Nope.
All right, then let's see if we have any news in the charge list. There's a new pull request. It's about fixing the semantics on Node API async context and the Node API callback scope related to V8 local semantics. So the basic idea is that V8 requires every local handle to be created on the um, stack memory block, so that V8 will be able to scan the stack memory space to find if there are any alive V8 local handles that's being used by the C++ stack. However, there was an assumption that in Node API that the the API callback scope um, use reference to a local handle that's not being kept in the C++ stack memory space. It's being it's here in the callbacks API callback scope class. So let's see if I can find it. Wait a second. So here we are basically like creating the callback scope via a new operator, and this callback scope class will be created on the heap rather than the stack space. And this callback scope is going to here we have it's going to create a node callback scope which will hold a reference a local handle. Sorry, the local handle of the resource. So this resource local handle will be allocated on the heap space rather than the stack space that V8 requires it to be. So this breaks the V8 API contract. But the good news is that this local handle on the node callback scope is not the only handle that reference to the resource object. We have a global handle on the async context struct. It's here, this one. So if we make this resource handle to be a strong reference to the resource object, I mean, that'll be fine if the callback scope allocates a local handle on the heap because it knows that this resource object will be still alive even if the um, local handle on the callback scope is not going to be able to be scanned by V8. So the pull request here is going to it's going to ensure us that the node API async context is going to hold a strong reference to the resource object so that the assumption that the resource object is going to be alive across the callback scope at the time of the before um, of the callback scope that created from this async context, so that the lifetime of the resource object will be ensured to be correct across the um, lifetime of it. Yeah, to be ensured to be correct. So that's basically what this API does. I think um, given that we have a API called API async init, and the only way to destroy this API async context struct as a out of parameter here is to invoke the API async destroy. I think it should be safe that people must call API async destroy on every API async context created via the API async init, so that to release the struct of API async context properly. So I think this still stick sticks to the API contract by the Node API. So it does not break the API guarantee that we provide via the Node API. So that's the basic idea of this pull request. Previously, the Node API async context holds a weak reference to the async resource because because long time ago, when the API was initially published, the async resource in the async resource parameter in the API async init can be a null pointer, so which means it's optional, and it's also initially that for before the introduction of async hooks execution async resource, the resource object does not have to be alive after the async context being created. So before this async hooks API being introduced, the only place that the resource object is being used is at the time that async context is being created, and there will be a async hook called async init um, will be will be used will use the async resource will use the resource object. So that's why the resource object was initially optional, and it was later being added as a weak reference. And now, given that the usage of the async execution async resource is being introduced, we should add it as a strong reference because, and this should not break the API contract because the API contract should be that for every async context created with an API async init, it must be destroyed with async API async destroyed. So adding a new strong reference to the API async context does not leak the memory because the strong reference will still be destroyed with the API async destroy. So it will still be cleaned up by this API contract. So that's the idea that why this pull request does not break the API guarantee.
Can you still pass null pointer for the async resource?
We can
Well,
still pass a null pointer as the resource object, and it will, for example, here API async init, we will create a plain object as the resource object and holds a strong reference to it. And this resource object will be destroyed as well at the time of API async destroy.
so you can pass null pointer in, but then if you call that async hooks get async resource, you would get this
Yeah,
newly created object.
yeah, exactly.
So technically, it doesn't sound like we need to have any kind of new version, right? Because technically, we just
Yeah.
fixing bug. It's-
Well, it's not a bug. I mean, it's a behavior change, but it's a simplification of the current async API async context um, implementation. So we can see that in this node API.cc, we removed that we removed the set weak call on the resource object on the resource global handle because we require we want to destroy this resource object at the time when the async context is being destroyed with API async destroy. So previously, it was added as a weak reference because we don't really need the resource object to be a strong reference. But now with the heavy usage of async hooks execution async resource, we really need the resource object to be alive across the lifetime of this particular async context. So there's no sense for us to keep this resource object to be a weak reference. It has to be in order for the API like async log storage to be correct all the time, the resource object has to be a strong reference because it hosts the context information. So if it's a weak object and when there's no reference to it, the context information will be lost. And the APIs like async log storage will behave incorrectly. So that's why we want the reference to the resource object to be a strong one rather than a weak one.
That
Right.
makes sense.
So technically, what I'm saying, we don't need new version. We technically we're fixing bug in implementation bug. We're not changing API, kind of documented API behavior in some sense.
There's no bug because there's no bug in the async context API itself, but we simplify the implementation by requiring the resource object to be a strong reference. So we don't need to have this weak
Okay,
this weak semantics.
not the bug, but we're just simplifying. But means like there's no observable behavior change for the users of the API. So what you, well, at least I'm here from the description.
Um, yes, but there is a case that if a user does not hold a strong reference to the resource object before this change, and because this is a weak reference, um, at the time of the reference become stale, there is a weak callback. Wait a second, right here. We set the flag lost reference, and we will create a plain object at the time of ensure reference to be a plain new viet object. So to maintain, but the context information is still being lost because we created a new resource object. But I mean, for the user to be able to use this API correctly, they should keep a strong reference. And that's what the API control, and that's how this async context needs to be used anyway.
Mhm. If you go to the documentation changes, there's a big section that was removed that talks about you have to keep that object alive because
Yeah,
it was a weak reference. And now
yeah,
that's been changed to the green section on the right. So now the end user doesn't have to worry about keeping a reference
yeah, exactly.
alive. Mhm. Yeah, that would be really odd too, that like if you did in the old implementation, if you did pass an object that was eventually cleaned up, and then you called the get async context, and then you just received an empty object, that would be a little odd, you
Yeah,
know. So
exactly.
yeah, so that's being adjusted and fixed here. And like you mentioned, every async init needs to have a corresponding async destroy. So that should be fine. Um, could there be a case where some like what would happen if some users did not destroy their async
Um,
contexts?
Even before this change, um, the API is in context struct, means this, which means this class, the
Mhm.
API is in context class will be leaked.
Right, right.
Yeah,
So you may not have a leak with your object itself because in the old way it was a weak reference so it could be cleaned up. But the async context object here would be leaked because you didn't clean it up.
yeah, like I commented here. So, um, before, so at the very first version, the API async init only allocates a struct or node async context, and it's just two fields of integers. So it's pretty trivial um, to be leak a significant number of memory. If so, user has to leak a significant number of async data to be observable. But now it could be more observable, much more easier to observe a memory increase if they didn't correctly code the API async destroy because there are more JavaScript objects being leaked as well. But I
Right.
don't think this is API breakage because they are supposed to call API async destroy on the API async context.
Agreed. If they are seeing these memory leaks now, it's because they weren't using the API correctly. And then maybe it'll show, they'll be able to find and see that, oh, I have a memory leak. These objects are getting cleaned up. Oh, I forgot to do my destroy.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That all makes sense.
One more question. If you go back to this documentation change, there is a change record. In To me, it sounds like it says a little bit. Could you scroll? Okay, I see on the right. It says like opposite, right? It's like description. The async resource object will not be held as strong reference. But what you just described is going to be held as a strong reference.
Yeah, you are. I think you're right. Would you mind commenting on the progress to suggest a change?
How
It's
could you do it?
probably a typo and meant to be will
Yeah, I can
now
do it.
be held. Yeah.
Just a small thing that oh, you don't need to put my name. Just
Yeah, no worries. I don't. I just don't want to take your credit. Uh,
probably just a typo. Okay.
Yeah. It's probably meant to be now instead of not.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
cool. Yeah. Yeah. Please take a look at this forecast. It'll be really appreciated.
Okay, I'll have a look, and thank you for providing us with deep analysis. It's definitely kind of it makes it the whole review much easier after that.
Can we
Cool.
quickly see what's failing? Like, is it just docs or
Um, Probably build
okay.
issue. I'm not going to use the Windows logs. I can probably jump to the Mac OS log or Linux log. That'll be easier to look at. Yeah, I think at the bottom, here we go. So yeah, I think it's probably a compilation error.
Okay. Maybe just a quick oversight.
Yeah.
Yeah. they'll get back to that. Okay. Yeah.
Lost reference not needed anymore because we were keeping strong reference and lost reference just unused variable now.
Yeah, I think the lost reference is not being used now. The reference will always be strong,
Yeah,
will always be a strong reference. Cool.
makes sense. So technically, we still will be at least another commit to fix it.
Yeah, I think that can be quickly addressed. But anyway, please take a look at it.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to move this one to in progress. There's a small change that marks the MPI data reference as a pure env function. So yeah, after a few runs of review, I think the pull request should be good to go now. And the CI has been green, so please take a look at it.
It
They
should
also,
be trivial.
please go ahead.
It should be quite trivial. It should be.
Yeah, they also originally changed the test as well. Um, but I think that the NPI basic env was designed to be compatible with NPI env. So there's no change. It's not necessary to change the test because the NPI env can be automatically cast to the type of NPI basic env. So the only necessary change is to change the function declaration.
Mhm.
Okay. The change looks good. Do you want to kind of? I can sign off it immediately, and maybe we can merge it if you like.
Yeah, I think I can take another review. But I can still land it if you but I mean yeah, it'll be good if we can take a second look. I'm going to move this to in progress. Cool. And
SPR maybe?
um SPR should be the list for the issues that has pull request open. So we don't have to look at these issues again.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah, I think this should be has pull request. This is the exact pull request that we just talked about. And let's see if there's anything that we have and are
There was
open.
I think in the bottom of this to-do list, that improve promise documentation.
Yeah.
This was marked stale by the stale bot. And I was unsure because we recently added the promise then and catch methods. So I'm not sure if this should just be closed.
Um, let's see.
I think it was before it was added because the person was using the API in the incorrectly way, and we were thinking of add some suggestions that we had on the issue itself, but now with the API itself, I don't know.
Um, right. I think it should
Can
be
you go to the
clear.
yeah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you go to the issue that raised the I think we had like an issue where the person was asking about what was wrong there. Maybe that one. Yeah, this one. And you suggested some things related to the just using the dam in the right way. And I think that task was related to add those examples, documentation, um, to the promises that like, but now we have the methods itself, so maybe we don't need it.
Yeah, I think the signature of the then function should explain it well, just like it is in the JavaScript, that there is a second parameter, on rejected handler, that should be attached to the then function. And function returns a new promise, which is like exactly the same as the JavaScript promise then and catch function. So I think, yeah, I'd agree that the issue can probably be closed as done.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for working on this previously. I think I'm going to close the issue as done.
Hmm. And the pull request that added the promise that in catch was 1668.
Thank you. Does this looks good to you?
Sorry, Kevin, you said it was pull request or issue?
Pull request 1668.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Mhm. Looks good.
Cool. Thank you very much for working on it. Great. And yeah, let's see what this is about. All right, this was open 2 weeks ago. I think we um it's a very simple code change.
How it relates to us? Like it sounds like node jeep.
I'm not sure the why should we place with this special?
I don't like that either.
Yeah.
It's just like one symbol of the ellipsis.
Yeah, the ellipsis has a single character equivalent in.
I didn't know that.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't like this change, but yeah. It's
But
But this is what usually
yeah,
I get then I ask Copilot to fix my English.
I
I,
think a change like this is legit. Like we don't really need
right,
three backticks to quote this binding logic.
right. Yeah, it's some changes is good here. It's what the power of Copilot. You can literally see like many of us not English native English speakers, so I think it's definitely gonna help. Good help. But we should ask people not to use this special character.
Mm-hmm.
But should it be assigned to build team? Like this is no Jeep. Technically, it should be not ours. Yeah.
Which one are you referring to?
But this change is actually inside of Node Jeep documentation. What I'm saying that actually
Um,
have like
well,
a word from build team in kind of as a.
this document is hosted inside our repository.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think this document is more about setting up Node.js to be used with an Node
never mind.
add-on API.
Sorry.
Yeah, like yeah, it links to Node.js in menu with several links.
Okay, then we just ask to kind of fix this triple dot, but the rest looks good actually. Yeah.
Yep.
Was it in few places? Like it was not just the one you pointed. Like effectively, I can see below. Like it's a few occurrences. No, there's actually more. Like not just one. It's actually just others. Like
Yeah, and
I
the
think
others.
I see like at least two. Yeah, maybe more. Yeah, there is more. Like yeah, actually, it's even three. So just say like all as a.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. All right. Think
Mhm.
this can be in progress.
There's one that's in progress that I think we should maybe look at, and it is the fixed data race. That has a Gabe icon next to it. That
This
one.
one?
Mhm. I think we discussed this maybe not last week, but the week before or something. Um, and it looks okay. Remember, this is where they like made the state be a triple state of closing, closed, or open. And then they used composition for the async resources instead of inheritance, and things like that in order to fix a data race condition.
Yeah.
And the most recent change was that I guess it's part of the last commit that was made because Vladimir pointed out a note about calling user code from under a lock. Yeah, yeah. So then they addressed it in that commit referenced. So I'm not sure if there's anything else that is particularly needed.
Yeah, let me check it out one more time because I was just in conference and I was like in a rush before. I kind of didn't go through all details, but overall, you're right. Like it looked pretty solid. I just don't know. Like I have a stupid style suggestion that I don't know. Like we typically in modern C++ we use an enum class. I don't know. But I don't know. It's big deal or not for Node.js project
Uh,
state.
I
It's
think it's preferred unless we have something special case like comparing the like using the enum as a integer and compare it as a like for convenience. So unless there are some special use cases, I think the enum class are preferred.
Yeah, I guess that
but
would.
it sounds like nitpicking for this huge PR. But technically, nobody else is going to come after that and to clean it up. So probably we still should probably ask to use enum class instead. But
Yeah,
it's
sure.
so minor compared with the rest of it. This change itself is so good. Like, I kind of afraid to do this nitpicking.
Well, I mean, you can say that the progress looks good to you overall, and just say some minor suggestions so that the
Yeah.
author will be able to get your point that this is a nitpicking. It's not something substantial blocking request. So that will also improve the conversation.
Okay. So overall, like I was previously looking at, it's probably this running code under local was the only kind of something which kind of popped up in my eyes, but the rest was like quite solid.
Cool.
So some workflows I would probably do a little bit different because to me it was a little bit difficult to read, but I understand that author was following the previous pattern. To me, it was some kind of the way kind of how we escaping from the functions and kind of executing something in the end was a little bit surprising. Like I find myself a little bit difficult to read such code, but again, it's my personal preference.
Well, if you find if it can be improved, you can please feel free to submit a pull request to improve them.
Right, right. That's why I don't want to kind of because otherwise it looks great. What I'm referring to, like I see, like if you look on the function, like if you scroll a little bit up on the right, what's function I see is what's called empty and maybe delete, right? Like, okay, this one it makes sense, and you have delete in the end. But we have if you previous case, if you go previous case, see we added this delete this. Like no, if you go up a bit on the right, you can see there is a delete this, and this function says like function delete mode. Oh. It was somewhere else. Like I also seen like it's very to me it kind of looked like very unexpected that we have delete as a part of main flow. Like just
Right. It was a resolved conversation, I think, because there
right,
was a push.
right. I think on the push, yes, it was. I remember. It makes sense, but again, it's like then you read it first time. It's like one of this WTF. Like, why in the push? Are we
This
deleted
one, right?
content?
Yes.
Yeah. But again, like you said, we can clean it up later. At this point, it's just looks to me looks unexpected. You would really see like a delete should happen in case of some kind of error, but not part of the main main flow. But again, it's so minor. We don't want to kind of stop this pull request because it's more important that we fix in some good stuff.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I'm going to add it to my list and take a look. And please feel free to um, review the progress again.
Okay.
Cool. And maybe I can move this a little bit up to the list as well
Oh,
as this one.
I didn't know that we can sort here.
Yeah, you can be manually sorted.
Nice.
Right. I think we are going to land the first three items because they are pretty much sorry, this one should be reviewed. So yeah, first two should be ready for merge, and the third one and the fourth one needs additional review. So that's it.
I signed off with my delete reference. Something.
Cool. Thank you.
If you want to converge it.
Yeah, I can land it soon after the meeting. And anything else for us to talk about in the last 10 minutes?
So we don't have progress on float 16 array, right?
Yeah, we are still waiting for the author to update the progress.
Okay.
Can to the pub.
It actually took us longer to figure out all this stability, but now like
Yeah.
getting maybe authors just don't have enough don't have time at this point to look at code. You
We
give
can
some
see if the author responds like in a month or so, and then if there's someone available, we can pick it up, preserving the commit history and amending it. So that's the typical workflow if the author does not have time to follow up with it.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. If there is no other issue to talk about, I think that's probably the end of the call. And I'm going to return the remaining 8 minutes to you and have a nice weekend.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for joining.
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.